Good morning. You are watching Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Bruno Edgard. Thank you for joining us as always from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. from Monday to Friday. And now Issues at Hand is always brought to you by Protea Hotel in Tebe. The Christmas season is here, so you want to make a reservation and a booking today so that you can enjoy a wonderful Christmas time with your family at Protea Hotel in Tebe. Now, in today's discussion, we are talking about the International Anti-Corruption Day that is scheduled to be celebrated on the 9th of December. And so that means we are talking about that day, but we're also talking about matters corruption and how we can fight it in this country. Remember, the president very recently said that it is incumbent upon all the youth to fight corruption. So what role can we play when it comes to this fight against this ailment that has sometimes murkied the waters when it comes to Uganda? Now, my guest for today is the Deputy Inspector General of Government. That's Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, who is here today with us to take us through this discussion. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good evening, good morning, viewers, and it's a pleasure for me to be here, sir.
Definitely, it's a pleasure for us to have you join our family today. And let's start though by understanding the mandate of the IGG, so that it being the main weapon when it comes to this fight, especially when it comes to misappropriation of public funds. What is the mandate of the IGG?
Thank you very much. The mandate of the IG is specifically provided for within the Constitution, within Article 237, where we have got powers and responsibilities to carry out our functions. Among our functions, we have split them in the different directorates. We have in the Inspectorate of Government, we have got the Directorate of Anti-Corruption. The Directorate of Anti-Corruption is responsible for all regional offices, and it spearheads the investigations of the cases of anti-corruption that we receive in the Inspectorate of Government. We also have the Directorate of Leadership Code. Remember the constitutional responsibility to ensure that all leaders comply to certain standards expected of leaders. So the Directorate of Leadership Code is to ensure that leaders behave in a manner befitting of leaders in the country. And then we also do handle declarations, because leaders are supposed to declare after 2 years, declare their assets, their liabilities to the Inspectorate of Government, and the Inspectorate of Government does verifications to ensure that what they have as their assets are commensurate to their well-known sources of income. We have a Directorate of Directorate of Legal Affairs. The Directorate of Legal Affairs is basically giving legal advisory services to the Inspectorate of Government, and they are responsible for the prosecutions, for the litigations, and for the legal advisory services to the Inspectorate of Government. We also have a Directorate of Ombudsman Affairs. Ombudsman Affairs basically does responsibilities of leaders, ensuring that leaders play their responsibilities, ensure that leaders are compliant to standards, ensure that leaders do not just abandon their offices but come back to claim services. Leaders have got certain responsibilities. There are people who are charged with service provision to the people, like ensuring that the pensioners, people who have retired, can be able to access their pensioners, ensuring that, services are offered to the people. So the Directorate of Ombudsman Affairs basically does that. Then we have the Directorate of Education, Research and Training, which we refer to as DREA. This directorate is responsible for awareness creation, publicity, awareness creation, empowering the people, training, and so on. So they train people, they train youth leaders, they train women groups, community monitoring groups, and so on. And we also have a directorate for projects, basically responsible for projects. In the Inspectorate of Government, we have certain development partners that spearhead the funding of projects. And under projects, we have Dr. Deep, basically doing development programs up country, contributing to the livelihood, infrastructure, and so on. So this directorate is responsible for monitoring the activities and ensuring that there is value for money. And they spearhead the transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption activities in the countryside. So those are some of the directorates we have within the Inspectorate of Government, but we also have units, like we have the Directorate of Communication, Partnership and Strategic Alliances, and this is a directorate which basically linked me with Family TV to be here. They do the communications, they link us with the media as the Fourth Estate and so on. Then we also have special units within the inspectorate, like the unit for III handles internal investigations. And one directorate I forgot to talk about is the Directorate for Special Investigations. Now, the Directorate for Special Investigations basically handles those high-profile cases which we receive. High-profile cases involving senior people, involving large sums of money. Those are matters that go to the Directorate for Special Investigations. And then finally, we have the Directorate for Finance and Administration, which basically oversees the administrative operations within the Inspectorate of Government, facilitates our activities up country, like training, research, education, and so on. So this is basically what we do in the Inspectorate of Government, and we derive our mandate from the Constitution, and we have got the Inspectorate of Government Act, which operationalizes that constitutional provision which establishes the Inspectorate of Government of Uganda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking us through. I know we have now, many of us talk about IGG, but now we have really understood what IGG does, and we're going to talk further more about it. But for now, let us get into the discussion when it comes to the International Anti-Corruption Day. So give us a background of this day. How did where does it come from, and what is it about?
Thank you very much. The International Anti-Corruption Day is actually a child of the United Nations General Assembly resolution of 2003, October, which basically designated the 9th December as the International Anti-Corruption Day for global observance and promotion of an awareness about corruption and its dangers, how to combat it, and how to prevent it. The International Anti-Corruption Day provides an opportunity for government, for the private sector, for the civil society organizations, the media, and citizens to come together and reflect on the effects of corruption and commit themselves to the collective action on preventing and addressing the pandemic of corruption in our country. Additionally, we have the African Union, which designated the 11th July as the African Anti-Corruption Day for Africans to also pause and reflect on anti-corruption progress in their communities, what is working, what is not working, and what remains to be done in order to deal with the scourge of corruption. So in conformity with the UN and the African Union resolutions, the anti-corruption agencies spearheaded by the Inspectorate of Government, PPDA, and other offices like Office of the Auditor General have over the years collaborated to implement a number of activities, a number of joint stakeholder engagements in order to celebrate or mark the Anti-Corruption Day. They have collaborated to implement these activities in the fight against corruption. So when you look at all these activities put together, you find that it includes, it brings together, first of all, the anti-corruption agencies to contribute in the anti-corruption campaign, which basically helps to commemorate the International Anti-Corruption Day. So that day is 9th December, and this year we are going to celebrate, we are going to mark that day in Ibanda district in western Uganda. And why we are saying Ibanda? Because when the Ministry of Local Government conducted a survey. They discovered that Ibanda was one of the best performing districts in terms of service delivery. So Ibanda was chosen to be the district to host the International Anti-Corruption Day in Uganda. So in 2021 performance appraisals, the departments, ministries and local governments, they looked at a number of things. They took a number of things into consideration before they could rate Ibanda as the best performing local government. And then the choice of this interagency forum, the anti-corruption organizations for Ibanda to host this day was based on that assessment, looking at it as one of the best performing in terms of service delivery, in terms of fighting corruption, in terms of taking services to the people and reaching out to the people. So there are a number of things which are taken into consideration, and that is how the Ministry of Local Government zeroed down on Ibanda. Thank you very much.
So the celebrations are happening in Ibanda when it comes to Uganda this year, which is good to see that they've been rewarded for their hard work when it comes to service delivery. But furthermore on that, what is the theme for this year's celebration and what activities are scheduled to take place?
Thank you very much. We have a number of activities that have been lined up to commemorate the International Anti-Corruption Day. And the commemoration activities will consist of a procession through the town, a rally, and His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, is expected to be the chief guest during the commemoration. A number of activities have been running through from July to June 2023. We programmed the anti-corruption agencies as part of the annual corruption campaign, and the climax is basically what we are going to have in Ibanda. The theme for this International Anti-Corruption Day is citizens must own the war to eliminate corruption. It is their war. And the focus is making the citizens basically own the war against corruption, because it is their war. It is their war and they must own it. It doesn't only belong to the anti-corruption agencies, but for the citizens, because the ordinary person is that person who, when he goes to the hospital and drugs have been stolen, he feels the pinch and effect of corruption. So if the citizens own the war against corruption, it will help to change the mindset, because they will be readily available, first of all, to report cases. There will be whistleblowers, there will be our informers, they will hate, they will shun corruption. In this campaign, the masses will be empowered through mass mobilization, through education, through awareness programs, and empowerment to take ownership of the war in the fight against corruption, by also demanding for better service delivery, by demanding for accountability, by demanding for this from the duty bearers. So when you look at the International Anti-Corruption Day again, the relevance of this campaign is basically to also strengthen partnerships and strategic alliances between the state and the non-state actors for effective citizen mobilization, to empower citizens to demand for transparency and accountability from an informed perspective, and they're making this demand from the duty bearers, and also to promote integrity and improved service delivery in ministries, departments, agencies, and local government. So basically that is about the theme of the International Anti-Corruption Day 2022, and it is citizens must own the war to eliminate corruption, because it is their war. Yes.
Thank you for taking us through the theme. But my question on that, and you have raised it, that it is true that citizens have to take this fight, that the buck starts with us, because many times we think, oh, Inspectorate of Government is there, they are taking the fight against corruption. But it's important for us to know that we are very much part and parcel of this fight. However, I do think these activities for this day are enough to help the message get into the citizens as Ugandans to help us understand that we must take this fight forward? Because when it comes to many government programs, there seems, and many officials have come out to state that one of the things is that fights the awareness of some of these government programs when it comes to members of, to us the citizens, is that maybe we really don't get the message. A lot of resources are spent, but at the end of the day, we don't get the message. So in your view, do you think that there is enough in these activities to ensure that we get this message about us being an important factor in this fight against corruption?
Thank you very much. Citizens must own the war against corruption because it is their war. Well, the number of activities we've lined up, we can't say it is enough, because the fight against corruption is a continuous war. When you go for war, you have to prepare, you have to learn who the enemy is, you have to scope the enemy, and you have to apply tactics that can help you fight the war. As the Inspectorate of Government, we have come up with new innovative mechanisms of tackling this problem of corruption in our country. We have introduced the Anti-Corruption Brigade, which is an ad hoc approach where we organize the baraza, we get feedback from the citizens, we respond, we take action immediately. There are certain approaches to fighting corruption, and we have the enforcement, we have the preventive, and we have got the awareness. Now, these approaches have to be combined in order to effectively fight against corruption. When you look at enforcement, it is done through our investigations, it is done through arrests, it is done through prosecution and punishment. The punishment may be in form of serving time in prison, dismissal from office, refund or recovery of the stolen funds and the proceeds of crime as well. Now, when we do prevention, like we have said, our strategy is preventive. Prevention is done through effective supervision. We are saying we should do better supervision, effective supervision, regular monitoring and inspection of projects. And this is some of the aspects the Inspectorate of Government is taking very, very seriously, through system studies that examine the systems and practices, through policies and procedures of institutions to establish loopholes that may be exploited for corruption. These loopholes are then appropriately sealed by the Inspectorate of Government. Wherever we identify loopholes, we try as much to see that we seal so that there is no leakage of resources or funds.
Talking about prosecution and loopholes, yes. Sorry for interrupting you there. When it comes to many citizens, especially, there's this perception. One, that there are some perceptions. One of them is that it's only the small fish who end up being held accountable, that prominent bigwigs who misappropriate government funds are not sanctioned. And two, when it comes to the sanctioning, I've had a lot of people say this, that, well, it's one thing to put the responsible or the guilty party in prison, but still the funds that were misappropriated have been lost, and still the taxpayer loses out. So is there a way that as part of the sanctions, these funds that were misappropriated can be recovered?
Thank you very much. Why I was smiling is because for every radio or TV talk show, the issue of the big fish has come out. And I think it's very important for us to continuously clear the air over that issue. When we do enforcement through investigations, arrests, prosecution and punishment and whatnot, we do not do selective prosecution. Big or small, it's all corruption. Just like in the Bible, sin is sin. You cannot say this is big sin, this is small sin. Because even when you look at the so-called small fish, one by one makes a bundle. So as the Inspectorate of Government, we know that there is progressive realization. When we move progressively and keep asking those people who have caused financial loss or who have misappropriated government funds to pay back, however little it contributes to the asset recovery fund. So it is important for me to clear the air first of all and state that the Inspectorate of Government does not do selective prosecution. We do not do selective initiation or receipt of cases. We investigate. We carry out investigation through all cases, and we get information from our informers. People volunteer to give us information. They give us leads. We rely on members of the public to aid our work, to provide leads, to blow the whistle, because we are not everywhere. So we rely on them to provide even evidence, and some of them even come out to testify in court. And when we get to the level of prosecution, sometimes the suspects own up and say, you know, I am responsible for this, I am guilty, but I would like to make good, I would like to pay back. And we encourage that a lot, because one, when they pay back, this money comes to the asset recovery fund and it goes back to the consolidated fund and can be utilized better by government. So when we talk about covering the gaps or the loopholes, that is exactly what we are doing. We're encouraging the people out there to come out and report cases of corruption. We take up the cases, we investigate, prosecute, recover. So when you look at recovery, it is a very, very useful approach. And for us, in our new, in our strategy of prevention, we want to empower the people with skills, empower the people with the knowledge, so that they can come out and report as whistleblowers, as informers, and this basically informs and helps us to do our work better, meaning that they will have owned the war against corruption. And I believe this will help go a long way in changing the mindset out there, because it is a perception where you hear that the Transparency International has done a survey and Uganda is continuously ranking poorly because the perception out there is not good. But when we work together with the people and change that mindset, the perception will improve. People will know about the effects and danger of corruption. People will hate and shun corruption. They will come out and report cases of corruption, and we will work together, and that perception will be completely improved. And then we don't only stop at that. Awareness creation is very important. Recently, His Excellency the President was talking to the youth at Kololo and was encouraging them to join the war against corruption, which is very, very important, because one, awareness involves spreading information within the general public on the dangers of corruption and how they can detect it and how they can avoid it and how they can be able to deter and report incidences to the appropriate authorities. So when we talk about the commemoration of the International Anti-Corruption Day, every year, 9th December, is one of the activities intended to raise awareness to the citizens of this government, of this country, so that they own the war against corruption. While state agencies carry out the constitutional responsibility for enforcement, for prevention and awareness, the citizens too carry out the key responsibility of prevention and reporting these cases to us. So it is very important that we have a holistic approach to fighting corruption in this country, so that everybody must participate, including you yourself. You must participate. Family TV must participate, and now by the way, you're participating. When you host programs like this, we are creating awareness out there, and people are getting to know. That is why they ask key questions like issues of the small fish and big fish. That is why they ask key questions about how we carry out our responsibilities to fight corruption and how we are tackling the problem together. Thank you very much.
Something very important that you mentioned is that when you're in a war, you have to know your enemy.
Very well,
and so
yeah.
for us, maybe for those of us, because sometimes general terms are very uneducative in the way that sometimes use general terms without actually knowing what these terms mean. So maybe you can take us through what corruption is and what constitutes corruption, especially when it comes to the Inspectorate of Government. And then secondly, who are some of these common perpetrators of corruption?
Thank you very much. When you look at corruption, I will best describe corruption by its characteristics. Because when you look at corruption, corruption is like an amoeba. It changes forms and shapes. And it is described by its characteristics. It can feature in form of a bribe, offering and giving, to solicit something, to change somebody's perception or mindset, or make somebody change his decision. So corruption manifests itself in form of bribery. It can manifest itself in form of illicit enrichment, abuse of office, misappropriation of public funds, abuse of public property. The institution has given you facilities to use to aid your work, and you abuse those facilities and begin using them for your own private gain. That is corruption. Corruption can manifest in form of money laundering, where you're getting money from here illicitly and trying to clean that dirty money in your malls, in businesses, which even are not generating any profit, but just to clean up and show a thief you have genuinely gotten that. So corruption manifests itself in many ways. And if you are to define corruption, the Anti-Corruption Act of 2009 defines it as abuse, misuse of public resources for private gain. So it can be through bribery, it can be through diversion, it can be through abuse of government property, and so on and so forth, in many ways, in different forms. And why I say it changes forms and shapes like an amoeba, just like you see we have Ebola now, or COVID-19, it has got the ability to squeeze life out of a nation. It can squeeze life out of the state. When citizens die, then we lose out, especially on their taxes, on their contribution to nation
Actually,
building.
can you give us more details on that? Because something that you also mentioned is pivotal, is for us to understand the effects of corruption when it comes to the taxpayer and when it comes to citizens of this country.
Yes, I was going to that. I was saying it can affect the investment in the country. How does it do that? No investor wants to invest in a country that is ranking poorly in terms of corruption. So it can affect the country in that way, and that's why I was saying it has got the ability to squeeze life out of a nation. Then in terms of service delivery, the ordinary person will suffer because there is poor service delivery. In terms of infrastructure, if money is supposed to be used for roads is taken away or is misused, then we have poor roads, or roads are not existent at all. So then how will people transport their goods and services, or take sick people to hospital, or move in search for jobs, and so on? So corruption affects the country in many ways. And when a country is corrupt, then service delivery is poor, and that is why we end up with people beginning to lament and lament and lament over the same. In terms of our report showing who are the most corrupt, which areas are most affected in the country today, our report points out that institutions like the Uganda Revenue Authority, it's one of the institutions which are leading, because remember, this is an institution supposed to be collecting revenue for this country, but it is ranking poorly in terms of corruption, because of the cases we keep receiving from such institutions. Then we have got the Ministry of Local Government. Ministry of Local Government, especially now that they're supposed to be implementing the parish development model, you find that in the countryside, some people are thinking that this parish development money, which should be supporting the community in terms of fighting poverty and empowering them, they think it's the cash bonanza. Some people are pocketing this money and running away with it. So we have lately been chasing them and causing them to refund that money. We have arrested some people, if you followed closely on news, and we are saying they must desist from that. If money is supposed to be reaching the people through the circles, it must be put to the rightful use, not just a few district officials taking it away for their personal use. So that is what we are doing. We are actually monitoring the parish development model closely. But corruption also manifests itself also in local government through other projects. And this is an area where we keep saying we need to empower the community. We have trained some community monitoring groups in the countryside, and the community monitoring groups are on alert for any construction, for any government project. They are on the lookout to ensure that there is proper service delivery. The quality of work being done is to the tune of what has been put in it, not shoddy work and lots of money taken away. There are certain projects I have halted. As the Inspectorate of Government, we have halted those projects because the community raises a red flag. say we were expecting this quality of service, they have done shoddy work and we are not able to get what we expect. Therefore, we hold and ask the people to make good or face prosecution. So while we have the state agencies carrying out constitutional responsibility for the enforcement, for prevention and awareness, we also have the citizens who should contribute. We also have the civil society agencies. The civil societies actually complement the work of state agencies, because when it comes to prevention, when it comes to awareness, they do a lot of work. Recently, I had an engagement with Rwenzori Anti-Corruption Coalition. Their contribution in the Kabarole region is immense because they are able to take up cases and report to us. There is the issue of the District Service Commission, still going back to local government, where district service commissions have been seen to sell jobs to the people. Adverts are run, District Service Commission are selling. For this job, 3 million. For the other job, 5 million. For the other job, 10 million. And there are cases which came up through Rwenzori Anti-Corruption Coalition, where some officials were asked to refund back the money they had received for selling jobs. You know, someone pays, then he's not given the job, then goes to complain that, you know, I had paid so and so money that he gives me this job and he didn't give me the job. And the person is put to task to refund. But now what we are saying is that those people should leave those offices because they are not fit to occupy those offices if they are receiving money from people for jobs.
Actually, on that very point you mentioned, that's one of the perceptions that people have, that and we saw it again in some of the misappropriation cases when it comes to the parish development model, that people were asking, so these district officials, some of whom misappropriated the funds, why are they still in office? Or for some cases you see that they are transferred from one district to another after they have been found to misappropriate their funds. Why don't they just be terminated, because it means they have failed to do their duties and obligations, one of which is being a person of integrity. So in terms of sanctions, and this was supposed to be terminated, because if you leave one bad apple in a basket, it's going to continue to spread the rot.
Actually, I've seen you have my mind. Why I say you have my mind, that question is so brilliant, and I was moving to that. We would like to see that those people leave the offices. Because when someone is a problem and you transfer him to District X, you will have transferred the problem. So we are saying, much as we are recommending their interdiction, disciplinary action must be taken. In the leadership code, people are demoted, people are dismissed. Disciplinary action, the leadership code tribunal, which enforces the leadership code act, basically has got those sanctions already in place. And that is where we are moving. We would like to see that the people who are not fit to hold those offices actually leave those offices for other people with integrity who will not embarrass this government. We want people with integrity to take up those positions. We have seen that happening in local government. You say, Chief Administrative Officer, take action, interdict this person. Then you find that Chief Administrative Officer has decided to sleep on the job. You have seen incidences where we have decided to arrest the Chief Administrative Officer for defying our orders, because the law gives us those powers. Then even when it comes to District Service Commission, which is supposed to take up the disciplinary action according to the law, they are also sleeping on the job. And we are coming up with recommendations to actually get into deeper engagement with Public Service Commission and see the option of even disbanding the District Service Commissions. We can have ad hoc arrangements where Public Service Commission constitutes boards to go to regions to do recruitment on ad hoc approaches. Because now when you have a permanent District Service Commission, which is probably not even equipped to carry out its responsibility, they end up compromising. And that is how you hear people beginning to sell jobs. Leaving local government aside, when you go to URA, which is supposed to be the tax assessment and collection body, and the government relies heavily on those taxes for running government programs, projects, activities, making sure ministries and departments and agencies are operating efficiently. If they are under-declaring, there are people who are under-declaring taxes. it becomes a problem. They will not realize enough revenue. If there are trucks moving and they're not paying taxes, but they are carrying produce. If there are businesses operating in this country and they're not, for instance, paying rental tax, how will the country survive? If they're exempting people who are supposed to be paying taxes from paying taxes, then the country is going to go worse, worse, and worse. So we need to enforce that area and ensure that those agencies carry out their responsibilities and contribute positively to this country. And that's why I said the work of fighting corruption is everybody's war. And the Constitution, specifically in Article 17(1)(I), says the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, it is a duty of every citizen to combat corruption. A duty of every citizen to combat corruption and abuse or misuse of public resources. So when we say that the citizens must own the war against corruption, the President echoed it clearer that everybody, all the youth must join in the fight against corruption. It's everybody's responsibility to hate, to shun, and fight corruption, because we need to move away from lamentation. Government etuyambe, things have gone out of hand. Besides lamenting, what else have you done as a citizen to combat corruption? Because accountability begins with me. Accountability begins with you. And everybody must be accountable. So remember, a corrupt-free Uganda starts with you and me. And also the war against corruption, if it is to be won, if we are to be real to ourselves, then everybody must own the war against corruption. But if you have one sector of people just seated there and lamenting, and another trying, it will not be possible. That's why I said when you go for battle, you have to scope the enemy very well. You have to know the tactics the enemy is using, and then you have to know how to fight the enemy before you can win that battle. So I think it's important for all of us to get up in arms against corruption.
Yes, it's important that we all play our part. Now, Issues at Hand continues, and when we come back from this quick breather that we are getting into, we are going to talk about the battle, and indeed we are going to talk about how the Inspectorate of Government is working with other agencies to take this battle forward, because it cannot be a lone fight. Today, we are talking about all matters corruption as we look forward to the International Anti-Corruption Day that's taking place on the 9th of December. And for those of you who have just joined us, my guest for today is Deputy Inspector General of Government. That's Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, and she is taking us through she has taken us through what we can look forward when it comes to commemorating this day, and two, she has been taking us through the mandate of the Inspectorate of Government and some of the things, for instance, how it is incumbent upon us to be part of this fight when it comes to the fight against corruption. Now, when it comes to this fight, you mentioned that it is not just for a singular party, but sometimes it seems like the Inspectorate of Government is alone when it comes to this fight against corruption. Because something you mentioned is that state agencies and bodies like Uganda Revenue Authority, the local government, some of the agencies that are worst hit by this ailment, which is corruption. But shouldn't these very state agencies be working together with the Inspectorate of Government to ensure that corruption is not a problem in their operations? So which are there agencies that IGG is working with when it comes to taking this fight against corruption?
Thank you very much. Like I said, the fight against corruption requires a holistic approach, not just the Inspectorate of Government, but other agencies as well. And we have got partnership and strategic alliances with other anti-corruption agencies. We have got the Interagency Forum of Anti-Corruption Agencies, and the Interagency Forum comprises of the Directorate for Ethics and Integrity, which is the ministry coordinating the work of the Interagency Forum. We have got the Director for Public Prosecutions, the DPP's office, which basically is responsible for prosecuting criminal cases. We have got the Inspectorate of Government. We have got the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, which basically also helps in handling cases of corruption. We have got Office of the Auditor General, The Office of the Auditor General does those audits in ministries, departments, and agencies, and they also do the value for money audits, and they basically contribute the fight against corruption, and they're among the interagency forum. We have got the Financial Intelligence Authority, which basically deals with issues of suspicious transaction reports. They work closely with banks. They're able to look at those transactions. They're also a member of the Interagency Forum of Anti-Corruption. Then we have the Leadership Code Tribunal. The Leadership Code Tribunal basically deals with cases of breach of the leadership code by leaders. They are also a member of the Interagency Forum. We've got the Law Reform Commission, the Uganda Revenue Authority, which is also a member of the Interagency Forum on Anti-Corruption. We have got the Local Government Monitoring Unit, which basically also participates in the Interagency Forum. We have quite a number of agencies as part of the Interagency Forum. We are like a number of 22 agencies, and they're both involved in the fight against corruption and contribute positively in the fight against corruption, because like I told you, we believe a lot in complementarity in our work, and even when it comes to commemorating the International Anti-Corruption Day, we are working together with all these agencies to ensure that we disseminate, we get to engage with the civil society and the people, and the message is presented clearly to the people on how everybody must own the war against corruption. Thank you very much.
Definitely, and together with working hand in hand with these agencies, what are some of the achievements that have come as a result of this fight against corruption when it comes to the Inspectorate of Government?
When it comes to fighting against corruption, the Inspectorate of Government has registered a number of achievements. Personally, when you look at our leadership, we have now made about a year and 2 months. That means we are left with 2 years and 10 months of our Chisanja, which is 4 years. And we are glad to report that in terms of prosecution, we have increased the number of prosecution cases. We have also started prosecuting for breach of the leadership code, and this is happening in the Leadership Code Tribunal. And this sends a good message among the leaders and public servants. Right now, we are moving to a time when leaders are expected to declare again, that is in March 2023. We are already disseminating and creating awareness. And then also in terms of the recovery rates, when you look at the high recovery rates of funds and assets illicitly acquired, we find that we are registering a lot of success because this money goes directly to our asset recovery fund. We also launched the lifestyle audit as an investigative tool against corruption, and the National Development Plan places it as one of the deliverables under the Security and Good Governance Program. And we have registered success. We have tested it. For every complaint that comes now against a public official, we do a compliance check. Did he declare? What he declared, is it commensurate to his well-known sources of income? And that helps us as an investigative tool. We also have introduced the anti-corruption brigades, and we have increased citizens' awareness, engagement, and we have held meetings with local government leaders. Personally, I was in West Nile and Bunyoro sub-region, and we have also established a community monitoring groups, especially in the refugee hosting communities in the country. These have led to project success in the areas where they are being implemented, because the communities are like our eyes and ears on the ground through the monitoring work they do. We have also increased partnerships and strategic alliances with various groups, including the civil society. We have signed some MOUs with them for the empowerment of the community monitoring groups, and the civil society have contributed tremendously to this. Members of the Interagency Forum and government authorities and the agencies I've mentioned have also contributed immensely in different ways. But much as we have had these achievements, we are saying we can do better. We can still improve, because we cannot just sit down and celebrate the little achievements. As the Inspectorate of Government, we can do better. We can do better, and we are looking forward to working together with everybody in order to register success, so that it is our success as citizens of this country. Thank you.
Yes, and where there are achievements, there most definitely are challenges. What are some of the challenges that the Inspectorate of Government has faced when it comes to the fight against corruption?
We have had some challenges. Challenges in that when you look at the interagency forum in the fight against corruption, they are not facilitated enough to do their work. Looking at the Inspectorate of Government, like I have said, we can do better. When you look at what we have recovered in our asset recovery fund, remember, corruption fights corruption. So we need to inject money in order to recover money. And what we have recovered with the little resources given to the Inspectorate of Government, I imagine would have recovered much more if government had facilitated the Inspectorate of Government. But we have had times like during lockdown where we are only having money for salaries and operational funds, but we do not have money to do our actual work of investigating, of prosecuting, of dissemination and awareness creation. So if money is injected in the Inspectorate of Government, we will be able to recover much more. We'll be able to even increase the conviction rates, increase the prosecution rates, increase the empowerment of the people, and even change the mindset. And even other agencies, for instance, if you look at the Directorate for Public Prosecution, if the office of the DPP is given more staff, technical people, to do the prosecution, then also their outputs in terms of prosecution would be much higher. And this monster called corruption would be completely wiped out. Because if all these agencies are empowered and are ready to work professionally within the law, then I believe everything about fighting corruption would change and would actually begin receiving less and less cases of corruption. Because one, people would now be shunning and hating and avoiding to be caught on the other side, on the wrong side of the law. Yes. So we have those challenges to do with resource constraints, challenges to do with the manpower, but we also lack a witness protection law. We have got the law that encourages people to whistleblow, the Whistleblower Protection Act of 2009 and its regulations, but this law would help better if we had the witness protection law, because corruption is quite risky. And the people who come to report the cases actually risk their lives because of the nature of the crime of corruption. People, when they are involved in high-profile cases, syndicate crime, they fight back and can actually kill others. So the witnesses need to be protected. The witnesses, we need to rent for them somewhere, we need to change their identity, so it's a costly thing. So if we have the witness protection law in place, then people would be encouraged to come and report cases of corruption to us. Right now we are saying, well, please come and whistleblow. There's a Whistleblower Protection Act, but it does not give adequate protection like the witness protection law would do. When a whistleblower comes, a whistleblower doesn't have to disclose his identity, then we encourage the whistleblowers to keep coming, because at the end of the day, when we recover the proceeds of corruption, 5% goes to the whistleblower as an incentive to encourage people to come and report cases of corruption to the inspectorate. Then sometimes we have challenges to do with uncoordinated efforts in the anti-corruption fights, which also leads to wastage of resources. For instance, if the Inspectorate of Government is already investigating a case, then you find another agency, maybe State House Anti-Corruption Agency, is also on the same case investigating it. So you find duplicity of work. But we have found an appropriate mechanism within which we agree and actually do joint investigations, or if State House Anti-Corruption Agency unit was already handling it, we say complete, then you bring to us or DPP to do the prosecution. We also need an amendment to our act, the IG Act, so that we can have corporate status in order to sue and be sued in our own capacity. Public apathy is another challenge, where the public is out there lamenting. But we're here by saying the public needs to join the war against corruption. Public apathy regarding corruption is to a great extent really affecting the fight against corruption. So we need to encourage more sensitization. We need to change the mindset of the people so that everybody can own the war against corruption, because this is our country and we must clean it together. If we don't clean it, then who do we expect to come and clean the house for us? Because, you know, when a house is clean from the inside, the Bible says it even reflects on the outside. So if our country is clean in terms of fighting corruption, we are going to see more investors coming to invest here. We're going to see more tourists coming here, and Uganda will indeed prove that it is the Pearl of Africa, because we will attract investments, will attract tourists, will attract developments, and a lot of, and our GDP will also be improved. So that is what I have to say about some of the challenges we are facing as the Inspectorate of Government. But going forward, we are doing lots of things to improve on our work. We are training and equipping our staff. We have lots of refresher training programs to equip them with new skills to fight corruption. Like I have talked about the new innovative ways. Because corruption changes faces like an amoeba, we have to think about new innovative ways of dealing with corruption. We have to train people to do covert investigations, to find out things which are difficult to get. We do intelligence investigations. And now this calls for the other partnerships we are talking about, where we sometimes have to partner with the internal security agencies, external security agency, so that we can work together in order to do our work better through the clandestine, covert investigations. Yes.
What's your parting shot for us as we look forward to, as family members, as we look forward to commemorating International Anti-Corruption Day?
As we look forward to commemorating the International Anti-Corruption Day and Christmas, I think as citizens of this country, we need to change our mindset. We need to be patriotic. We need to show love and care. We need to act with confidence, because as we move towards Christmas, Christmas reminds us of a time when the greatest leader in this world was born in humility, in a manger, somewhere in a cradle. And as leaders who are privileged to be leaders in this country today, we need to demonstrate that humility. We need to show leadership by example. We need to desist from participating in acts of corruption. We need to stop covering the corrupt. We need to come out and name and hate and shun corruption. And when we show leadership by example, the citizens out there will be very happy to join the war against corruption. But if as a leader I'm showing that I have arrived and I don't need the people there, then it becomes very difficult. So we need to go down to the people, identify with the people, work with the people, join hands with the people in order to change this country. So those are my parting words. And corruption needs a holistic approach where everybody must fight corruption. Like the Constitution, Article 17 says, every citizen, it's a duty of every citizen to fight against corruption. So every citizen must rally behind us to fight against corruption, because it's the people's war. It's everybody's war. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, for taking us through that discussion. There you've had it. Well, you and I, both of us, all of us, we are warriors in this fight when it comes to the fight against corruption. It starts with us. So remember the statement that says charity begins from home. If there's corruption at home, then what do you expect for the rest of the country? So it starts with us. Let us lead this fight so that we can have a country that's free of corruption, which means better service delivery, and which means that we can enjoy the benefits of our country even further. For now, we end Issues at Hand today, and tomorrow we shall return. God richly bless you. Enjoy the rest of your day.